What's up, guys? Ken all here, Bulls on Wall Street. Hey, let's take a look at the indexes and see what's going on because I think it's going to be a fun week. So we had an epic week last week for Thanksgiving. You had a 3.5% pop in the QQQs. I can't say much more about it. We are a little bit overbought. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row. So I would anticipate, some level of pullback and kind of back and fill this maybe before we can do some of this kind of action. But be mindful, we could have a 1 or 2 day pullback here. And if we did kind of get into this zone, I think that would be a viable pullback if we can hold the 9 EMA and the 50 SMA. A couple things to just be mindful of. I thought market breadth really did improve last week, so keep an eye on that too. We had really like a good pop in the T2108 here. We were in the 20-something spot. We got the 50, so market breadth improved quite a bit. Percentage of stocks over the 200-day moving average improved quite a bit. So there was a lot of good things going on. And you know what? There's a decent amount of like indexes that are looking decent too. Obviously the big play, gold is about to break out here. Silver is in the process of going, full-blown monk mode. We were adding this in the chat room. The 50 strikes for January a few days ago. We've got still like tons of time here, but I think this is a big breakout. You have a 6-week-long consolidation. And if you look at all like the kind of, silver stocks, they were leading the way even before, right? Like they've been just going monk. So I do think they will probably get a, 1 or 2 day pullback in the silver names, but then be mindful for the dip buys. I think AG looks fantastic, 20 million shares in volume. Obviously it needs to, once you hit this spot here, you do need to kind of back and fill some of this area here. But I think this one, I think EXK, both of these are like ripe. But they need that a little bit of a pull here, just a few days, kind of build out a little handle and then let the EMAs tighten up. And I think you're going to be in for a good spot. Beyond that, look, I mean, healthcare has been really hot. You're seeing, right, a huge trend in healthcare in the last few months. And it is also, getting ready to kind of bust loose. It's right at resistance. So there's a lot of interesting things. I will say one thing that I found interesting right now was that even though the indexes look pretty good, I didn't find that many individual names, like individual stocks that I was like, oh shit, like I really would like to buy those. And so that was something, I think because maybe this last dip in the Qs just destroyed, right? Like so many of the kind of AIE tech stocks and stuff like that, so many of them are down like, 40, 50%. So there's not that many like juicy stocks for right now, tomorrow, because a lot of stocks are just extended. But I really do like a handful of these names. Like I think something like this on this, on this wolf, like if it could tighten up here under the breakout spot, right? Like that looks, pretty juicy, right? Like, even like if you can get, a little bit extra push in like Cypher or something like that, like both of those could get juicy, but I think Wolf has a better levels here than Cypher, so I didn't add Cypher to the watch list. I added the Wolf Nation. You can see here this Grawl like is also flagging out here. So like some decent, but it needs a little bit more accurate. It needs a little bit more, I think, because the first entry was here, in the 90s. So like you still need a little bit more, I think, Flagzilla. You have a W pattern here in APLD. Like I'm starting to see some of these kind of older names, right? Like you're starting to see some of these things rebound. So I think that could be, you got a nice kind of W pattern over here. Keep an eye on that. Like I wouldn't be opposed to that. Like you've got, especially if you can just kind of take out this zone here, I think you're going to be in for a decent spot. But once again, these are like kind of B-level setups. ONDS of this one, you can see the last few days it's been consolidating on lighter volume, and you're holding the 50 here. Like, let's see if this thing kind of comes out of this spot over here. It does tend to like have these big days, and then it just dumps for a few days. But overall, like it's an interesting structure. If you can break this 9 spot, maybe you got something. But I think on this one, you don't want to hit it on the break. Like you'd rather see it like kind of hold here, and then as it starts to curl its way back up on a shorter term time frame, then let it break there, and I think you'll have something But yeah, I think that's Intel had a big day, 10% on Friday. But once again, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days in a row. You're at the top of the Bollinger Band. So you do need like this to back and fill like some of this area right here. And if it does, then I think we're in a good spot. Reddit, this is probably the best one out of the group. You've had a couple, you had an inside day, right into this. Like, if you take out this kind of trend line over here, I think that's top of the list, if you can get some strength. Now, the tricky part is this, the market needs to pull back a little bit, right? Because it is up so many days in a row. So just kind of keep that into the mind. This AMTM, this is an earnings breakout. This is a nuclear play. I'm looking to see how it reacts around either the bottom of this breakout bar or this gap fill. I think if we can get somewhere in there, I think that's going to be a good bounce candidate. Then you can see like some of these names like AVGO, like these need pulls. First of all, this is an awesome breakout, the highs. You had a pop in volume here. Just let it kind of pull back, maybe back test into this area. Somewhere between, 385 and 370, I think would be nice. Comp has had a nice 3-day pullback. If you can retest this 10 spot, I think that's something I'm a buyer on. And you can see here, like I want to get a couple of these gold names just with the, I'm looking at two different things. Number one is maybe get the 400 strikes, go like a month out. I think you could get there pretty fast, especially with the way silver is moving. And then we'll find a couple gold names on itself. Google, obviously, we want to try to find ways to get this on dips. This is probably going to be maybe, this is the only out of the big names, right? This is really the only one that looks good. Apple looks okay, but it just doesn't move well. Let's see if we can kind of get a gap down on this Google. Maybe you get into the 9 or the 300, but if we could fill here, I mean, that would be just epic. Like, I think we could swing some of those, and it'd be like a good little shredder for us. Let's see here. We got CM. Apple, yeah, you can see it's kind of got a couple inside days in a row. So if you notice here, right, it's kind of like this is like the cream of the crop currently. We need a little bit of a pull in the markets. Everything is getting crazy everything's just a little bit extended. So let's see if we pull back here and, keep an eye on earnings plays and stuff like that. We got Snow and some other names for the coming week that should report, so we'll get some action on those. But otherwise, let's go do what we do. Love you. Peace.